As the primaries moved to the more conservative South and West, the campaign gained momentum.
We are ahead of our projections at this time, where we thought we would be. And many people say, well, you know, is that just whistling past the graveyard or something? No, we're ahead to the extent that recently, for the first time, I said I believed that there was a very great possibility, if not probability, that I could go to the convention with enough delegates in advance to win on the first ballot.
After winning some of those primaries, none of us ever thought that was out of our reach. Something would happen that would turn that convention. And I think Reagan believed that.
Madam Chairman, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, home of the Phillies and the Pirates, cast 10 votes for Governor Reagan and 93 votes for Gerald Ford.
20 votes for Gerald R. Ford.
Ford had given his acceptance speech, and he then turned to the skybox where we were, where my father was, and sort of beckoned my father to come down. I think he was conscious of the fact that nearly 50% of the people in the hall, maybe even more, really would have preferred Ronald Reagan to be the candidate.
The response of those delegates was something unbelievable, just unbelievable. And there we were in this box way back in the back, and we stood and he kept doing this to them to tell them to sit down. They never would sit down. They wouldn't stop yelling for him and speech. I just hoped that Ronnie had something that he wanted to say, because he said to me, as we were running, we didn't expect to be up on the stage. And as we were running to get there, he said, I haven't the foggiest idea what I'm going to say.
If I could just take a moment and I had an assignment the other day. Someone asked me to write a letter for a time capsule that is going to be opened in Los Angeles 100 years from now. We live in a world in which the great powers have poised and aimed at each other horrible missiles of destruction, nuclear weapons that can in a matter of minutes arrive in each other's country and destroy virtually the civilized world we live in. And suddenly it dawned on me, those who would read this letter 100 years from now will know whether those missiles were fired. They will know whether we met our challenge, whether they have the freedoms that we have known up until now will depend on what we do here. Mr. President. Thank you. Great pleasure.
And the power of that speech was extraordinary, and you can just feel throughout the auditorium the palpable sense among the delegates that we'd nominated the wrong guy.
The next day, Reagan bid farewell to his campaign staff.
Sure, there's a disappointment in what happened, but the cause goes on. And don't get cynical. Don't get cynical, because look at yourselves and what you were willing to do, and recognize that there are millions and millions of Americans out there that want what you want, that want it to be that way, that want it to be a shining city on a hill.
On the plane going back, I went over and I had a convention ticket, and I asked him if he'd sign it as a souvenir. And what he wrote was, "We fought, we dreamed, and the dream is still with us." And looking back on it now, he never gave up. He just kept right on going. It was, you know, this incredible crushing defeat, and it didn't crush him. Just came back up, shook his head, and said, "Okay, what's next?" And that began the campaign for the year 1980.